Early morning, March 3rd, 1971, Cam Ranh Base, South Vietnam. The sun had barely risen when a courier dropped a stack of correspondence on Lieutenant Colonel Harold McPherson's desk. Most were routine, mission reports, requisition forms, requests for leave. But one envelope, handwritten and creased at the corners, stood out. He picked it up almost absently, sliced it open, and began to read.
Sir, I hope you will forgive the nature of this letter, and that you won't dismiss me too quickly. My name is Elizabeth Crane. My husband, Captain Daniel Crane, was reported MIA on January 18th during a reconnaissance flight over the Mekong Delta. I know you receive many letters like this from desperate wives, and perhaps you'll think me just another woman clinging to hope where there is none. But this is different. For the past 3 nights, I have had the same dream. In it, Daniel is alive. He's weak, injured, but alive. He is hiding in what looks like an old stone temple, partly overtaken by jungle. It's near a wide bend in a river. There are stone statues of serpents and elephants, and a Buddha shrine broken in 2. He keeps repeating the words, "Don't forget the flame." I don't know what it means, and I can't say why I feel this strongly, but I know it's not just a dream. Please, if there is anyone who could look into it, anything at all, I beg you. I believe he is waiting. With hope, Elizabeth Crane.
Lieutenant Colonel McPherson had read dozens of similar letters before. Most came from grieving mothers or wives searching for closure, clinging to fading hope. But something in Elizabeth Crane's tone made him pause. She wasn't just pleading. She was certain. He reread the line, "Don't forget the flame." McPherson exhaled slowly and leaned back in his chair, the letter resting on his chest.
God help me.
Then reached for the secure line. Minutes later, Major Tom Berenger from 1st Recon Intelligence stepped into the office, still nursing a mug of black coffee. McPherson slid the letter across the desk.
Take a look.
Berenger glanced at it, scanning quickly.
Another dream letter? Read the part about the flame.
Berenger's eyes narrowed as he read aloud.
A Buddha shrine broken in 2. He keeps repeating the words, "Don't forget the flame."
He looked up.
You think it's code?
I don't know.
McPherson said quietly.
But 2 weeks ago, South Vietnamese scouts reported a firelight in an abandoned temple near Song Tien River. We wrote it off as superstition.
Berenger raised an eyebrow, flipping through a file.
Crane's F4 went down, here.
He tapped the map.
12 kilometers from that same river bend. Coincidence?
Maybe, but it's the closest lead we've had in 6 weeks.
McPherson said. He looked back at the letter, then out the window toward the jungle. The jungle didn't sleep. It hummed, groaned, and whispered like it was alive, watching, waiting, especially at night. Officially, Operation Candlelight was labeled a reconnaissance sweep, mapped across Grid 21D of the Mekong Delta. The orders stated, investigate signs of NVA troop movement and gather intelligence on suspected supply caches along the Song Tien corridor. Unofficially, the mission's true objective was known only to McPherson, Berenger, and the team's commanding officer, Captain Michael Tex Halley. Tex stood on the dock as the patrol boat was loaded, hands on his hips, a toothpick shifting from one side of his mouth to the other. He'd seen more than his share of bad missions in this war, and something about this one already scratched at his instincts. Lieutenant Jamie Rodriguez, their medic, stepped beside him, adjusting the strap of his field kit. You get the feeling we're not just looking for footprints? Rodriguez asked. Tex didn't answer at first. He just looked down the muddy stretch of river, where fog hung like a curtain. We're looking for a ghost, he finally said. Only this one might still have a heartbeat. Sergeant Ray Brannigan, their radio operator, approached carrying his pack. Local guides are ready. They don't look too happy. Tex turned toward the 2 South Vietnamese scouts standing near the bow, Nguyen, tall and silent, his face unreadable, and Thuy, the younger of the two, his eyes darting constantly like a rabbit sensing hawks. Nguyen muttered something in Vietnamese and motioned toward the shoreline where an old woman knelt by the water's edge, lighting incense sticks. Wisps of smoke curled skyward, barely moving in the thick air. "What's she doing?" Rodriguez asked. Thuy answered softly. "She pray for safe passage." Brannigan frowned. "That for us or for the river?" "Both," Thuy said. The engines grumbled to life, and the patrol boat eased away from the dock. The delta swallowed them quickly, its tangled mangroves and dark water closing in on both sides like the jaws of some ancient creature. Fog slithered through the branches overhead, and the dense canopy turned twilight into near darkness, even though it was only late afternoon. They passed small riverside huts where children watched silently, barefoot in the silt, their eyes reflecting the boat's dim lights. An old man lifted a small wooden cage toward the sky and opened it, releasing a dove that fluttered once before vanishing into the gray. No one spoke. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. As night fell, the guides slowed the boat, their body language tightening. "They say we near the watching place," Thuy said. "Jungle not sleep here." Tex checked his compass. They were within 10 kilometers of the river bend mentioned in Elizabeth Crane's letter. He hadn't told the men the full reason for the mission, but the unease had spread through the group like damp through cotton. They set camp on a raised patch of earth beside a dying fig tree. The fire was small, almost ceremonial. Rodriguez boiled water while Brannigan adjusted the radio's antenna, tuning it between bursts of static. "Anything?" Tex asked. Brannigan shook his head. "Same as yesterday. Dead air." Nguyen crouched at the edge of the tree lean, staring into the dark. He spoke suddenly, voice low. "Sometimes. Ghostly fire." Tex looked up. "Ghosts?" Nguyen nodded once. "Not bad ghost. Lost one. He burned flame every night. Wait for Skybird." Nobody laughed. Rodriguez glanced toward Texas. "He's talking about the guy we're looking for." Tex didn't respond, but the firelight flickered across his expression, one caught between disbelief and hope. That night, none of them slept well. Strange sounds drifted in from the trees, cracks, whispers, soft rustles that couldn't be explained by wind or animal. Something unseen. Something unseen moved just beyond the firelight, always staying out of reach. Just before dawn, Brannigan stirred from half-sleep and tapped Tex on the shoulder. "Captain!" Tex sat up instantly. "There," Brannigan said, pointing across the river. Through the early mist, a faint orange glow pulsed between the branches. It was steady, not lightning, not a trick of the fog, a flame. Rodriguez stepped up beside them. "You seeing this?" Tex picked up his rifle. "Get your gear. We move at first light." They moved silently at dawn, canteen strapped, rifles ready. The jungle around them glistened with dew, and the air was thick with the scent of wet earth and something else, smoke. 2 kilometers in, they saw it. A stone temple, hidden behind layers of banyan roots and curtains of moss. Its carvings were ancient, elephants, monkeys, and serpents coiled around one another like guardians of a forgotten age. At the center stood a shrine, half collapsed, with a broken Buddha slouched at the base. Sergeant Brannigan signaled halt and stepped forward, his boots crunching on scattered debris. Inside the stone walls, he found signs of life, scraps of fabric, a rusted tin cup, and a fire pit still warm. "Someone's been here," he whispered. Rodriguez knelt beside a torn scrap caught on a root. He held it up. Olive drab. U.S. issue. They all tensed. Then came the sound. A cough, barely audible, raspy, human. Tex raised his rifle. "Identify yourself." No answer. Then from behind the altar, a trembling hand appeared, followed by a gaunt face streaked with dirt and overgrown stubble. "Don't forget the flame," the man gasped. "Captain Daniel Crane." They carried him out in a makeshift sling. He was weak but coherent. Daniel told them how he'd ejected after taking flak near the bend. He broke his leg and crawled for miles. Monks from the hidden temple found him. Silent, aged men who hadn't spoken English but understood compassion. They hid him.
"I ejected. Over the bend, south of grid 21D. Took flak to the fuselage. Couldn't steer. The jungle came up fast. When I hit the trees, I thought that was it. Parachute snagged, legs shattered. I crawled. Hours. maybe days. I don't know anymore. I kept heading for light, but it wasn't
Fed him
sunlight,
rice and
it was
herbs,
fire,
and helped him light
small,
signal fires
steady,
at night.
like someone
Each
was
flame,
waiting.
he said,
The monks found
was
me,
lit with the
3 of
thought
them.
of
Didn't
Elizabeth.
speak a word of
In
English,
fevered
but they knew how
dreams,
to keep a
she
man
called to
breathing.
him, and he
They had a
whispered
shrine,
back, "Don't
half
forget the
broken,
flame."
stone
He didn't know she had
animals
written a
running
letter.
through the roof. It felt older than war, older than any of us.
Back at base, McPherson read Elizabeth's letter again. Every detail matched: serpents, broken Buddha, the bend in the river. Her description had been too precise, too real. She hadn't imagined it. The official report marked it as a successful recon with 1 recovered POW. No mention of the temple, no monks, no fire. But in McPherson's sealed report titled Candlelight, he added a final line. Sometimes the jungle whispers, but sometimes someone listens. Elizabeth and Daniel reunited in Hawaii 6 weeks later. He had scars on his body, on his soul, but he was home. She never dreamed of the temple again. But every night before bed, she lit a single candle, just in case.